The unexpected shift when the intern turned into a vision. Brace yourself for a breathtaking transformation. What if the person you least suspect holds a truth that will flip your reality? This is a tale of power, judgment, and a shocking truth that will leave you speechless. Before we begin, ask yourself, do you trust first impressions? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories. Are you seriously inviting her? Naomi Mensah crossed her arms, eyeing Daniel Ofori with that knowing smirk he was too familiar with. Don't tell me you've turned into a philanthropist. Daniel didn't lift his eyes from the papers. Selena Owusu, his intern, was sorting documents near his desk, pretending she hadn't heard a thing. It's the company's annual banquet, he replied coolly. All staff are invited. All important staff, Naomi corrected, raising her voice just enough for Selena to hear. Or is your intern going to grasp what grown-ups are discussing? A few of the executives chuckled. Selena clutched the papers tighter, but said nothing. Naomi's right, chimed in Frederick Boateng, one of the senior directors. People like us don't really mix with, well, you know. Daniel finally glanced up briefly. His eyes met Selena's. She didn't look at him with hope or desperation. Just that quiet strength he never fully understood. Selena, he said, his tone sharper than he meant. You're officially invited to the party this Saturday. I trust you know how to conduct yourself. The air grew dense. She set the files down carefully, like they were made of porcelain. Thank you, Mr. Ofori, she said flatly. I'll think about your invitation. Naomi let out a laugh. Think about it? Do you have some glamorous plan on a Saturday night? Selena turned to her, her dark eyes flashing briefly. I always have choices, Miss Mensah. Some just aren't worth taking. Naomi's grin faltered. The other directors exchanged uneasy glances. Well then, Daniel muttered, clearing his throat. That's that. Selena collected her things calmly. At the door, she paused. One question, Mr. Ofori. Is this invitation meant to have any special meaning? Daniel felt a tightness in his throat. The others waited for his reply. Just that we want everyone to enjoy themselves. He lied. Selena nodded slowly. I understand. Have a good evening. The door shut quietly behind her. Naomi burst into laughter. Oh my goodness. Did you see her? Like some insulted duchess. This is going to be entertaining, Frederick added, picturing her trying to blend in with them. Daniel said nothing. He kept staring at the door, where Selena had just walked out, feeling something strange in his chest. He couldn't place it. A sister's instinct. That night, Selena returned to her small flat, completely drained. Her younger sister, Lydia, was seated at the dining table, immersed in her textbooks. How was your day? Lydia asked without glancing up. Selena dropped onto the couch. I got invited to the company event. Lydia lifted an eyebrow. And is that good or bad? Bad. Very bad. Why? Selena closed her eyes. Naomi's laugh still rang in her ears, and the director's mocking stares lingered in her memory. Because they didn't invite me to be part of it, Lydia. They invited me to laugh at me, to make me feel like I don't belong. Like a joke they've all silently agreed to. They invited me to embarrass me. Lydia put her pen down and walked over to the couch. Selena, look at me. Selena opened her eyes. Lydia had that serious expression she wore when she was about to give real advice. So, what do you want to do? Stay home? Fake a cold? Is that really what you want? Selena exhaled. No. I want to show them they're wrong about me, but I'm scared I'll look foolish. Lydia sat beside her. You've worked at that company for 3 years. You've watched how they act, how they speak, how they live in their bubble. Do you really think you can't match that? They were born into that world. I wasn't. But you're sharper than every one of them put together. Lydia held her hand. And you've got something they never will. True class. Not the kind money buys, the kind that lives in your soul. You walk into a room and carry something they can't define, and that scares them. Selena felt tears sting her eyes. What if I'm wrong? What if I prove them right about me? Lydia gave her hand a firm squeeze. Then you'll be wrong with pride. But Selena, you've always been too good for that place. It's time they see it. Selena stayed quiet, staring out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Daniel and Naomi lived in their fancy world, assuming she wouldn't dare show up. Maybe it was time they remembered she existed. Maybe it was time they choked on their certainty. Maybe it was time to shock them. On Saturday night, the ballroom of the capital's most elite hotel buzzed with elegant chatter and polished laughter. Daniel adjusted his tie for the 10th time, glancing at the entrance every few minutes, waiting for someone. Naomi stood beside him, glowing in a golden gown that cost more than Selena's monthly paycheck. "Just making sure everything's going smoothly," he lied, sipping his whiskey. "Relax, darling, your little intern probably stayed home watching soaps." Naomi laughed. "It's obvious, there's no way she's showing up." Frederick appeared with 2 other directors, all holding drinks. "Still expecting the big reveal?" he asked sarcastically. "I bet she doesn't even own a proper dress." "Or maybe she's showing up in her office wear," another chimed in, sparking laughter. Daniel forced a smile, but something in his stomach tightened. Part of him hoped Selena wouldn't come, to spare her the humiliation they had all quietly prepared. But another part wondered what would happen if she actually did. "Ladies and gentlemen," the master of ceremonies announced, "dinner is now served." The guests began to make their way toward the grand dining hall. Daniel walked beside Naomi when the background noise of chatter suddenly dropped. He turned toward the entrance and felt the breath leave his lungs. Selena stood there, perfectly still. She wore a deep red dress, classic, tastefully fitted, subtly accentuating her figure. Her dark hair flowed in soft waves over her shoulders. There was no flashy jewelry, just small, delicate earrings that shimmered quietly. Her gaze swept the room with calm confidence, as if she were born for spaces like this. The silence stretched for long, waited seconds. Some guests stared with open interest, others with awkward surprise. Selena began to walk. Her steps were sure and deliberate. She didn't look down or hesitate. She moved like someone who belonged, effortlessly. "My God," someone whispered behind Daniel. "Who is she?" Naomi's hand clamped onto Daniel's arm. She murmured. "It can't be. How can she look like that?" Selena reached the main group. She gave a subtle nod. "Good evening, Mr. Ofori. Thank you for the invitation." Her voice was composed and courteous, none of the shyness she usually carried in the office. "Selena," Daniel could barely get her name out. "You look different." She smiled, and the change in her expression was striking. "Different? I just put on a dress, Mr. Ofori." "That's all." Frederick cleared his throat awkwardly. "Yes. Well, what a surprise to see you here." "Surprise?" Selena looked directly at him. "You didn't think I'd come, Mr. Boateng?" "No, of course not. I mean," Naomi jumped in, regaining her poise. "Frederick means we're thrilled to have you here, although I must say that dress is interesting. Did you buy it just for tonight?" The venom in her tone was unmistakable, but Selena didn't even blink. "Actually, I've had it for years. Sometimes the simplest things are the most elegant, don't you think?" Naomi narrowed her eyes. Selena had just, ever so politely, called her flashy golden gown tacky. Of course, Naomi responded with a tight smile. "Although, I suppose for someone in your position, figuring out what to wear to these events must be tricky." "You're right," Selena nodded. "Luckily, elegance isn't something money can buy. You either have it or you don't." A quiet murmur passed through the group. Several guests had drawn closer, now quietly eavesdropping on the exchange. Selena had countered Naomi's jab without raising her voice or losing her poise, but her words landed with precision. Her calmness wasn't just control, it was steel. Every word, every pause was measured, chosen not to retaliate, but to remind them she didn't need to fight to win. Daniel watched, almost entranced. This wasn't the reserved, quiet Selena from the office. This woman radiated presence, a calm power that didn't need to announce itself. "Selena?" a voice called from behind. Everyone turned. A distinguished older gentleman, dressed impeccably, stepped forward with a warm smile. "Miss Owusu." Selena's eyes lit up. "What a surprise to see you here." "My dear Selena," he greeted her, kissing both cheeks. "When I saw your name on the guest list, I couldn't believe it." "You work with these gentlemen?" Daniel's brow furrowed. It was Bernard Diatta, one of the most influential investors in West Africa and an occasional client of the firm. "I'm Mr. Ofori's assistant," Selena replied calmly. "Assistant?" Diatta looked over at Daniel in disbelief. "Do you even know who this young lady is, Daniel?" Daniel shook his head slowly, feeling more disoriented by the second. "Selena was the coordinator for the literacy initiative we supported in Dakar 3 years ago. Her program reached over 1,000 immigrant families. An extraordinary woman, not just because of what she achieved, but because she never asked for recognition. She just did the work, quietly, tirelessly, and with more impact than any of them had ever managed." Silence dropped over the circle. Selina just gave a modest smile. It was an honor to be part of that project, Mr. Diatta, and she speaks flawless French, he added proudly. Selina, you must update me. Are you still involved in community work? Naomi looked like she'd seen a ghost. Frederick had stopped smiling. Daniel was struck by the overwhelming realization. In 3 years, he had learned absolutely nothing about the woman who'd worked just a few feet away from him. Selina Owusu had just rewritten the rules of the evening, and the night was far from over. What do you think will happen next? How will Selina's past reshape her future? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're enjoying this gripping story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful content. A force of nature. Dinner unfolded under a strained silence that only Selina seemed unaware of. Naomi had purposely arranged to be seated near her, poised for the perfect moment to strike. Selina, dear, Naomi began with deliberate charm as she sliced her salmon delicately. It must be quite an experience working with such refined individuals after coming from such a different background. Selina chewed thoughtfully before responding. Are you talking about working with the wealthy after working with the poor? The bluntness made several guests pause mid-bite. Well, I wouldn't have phrased it so harshly, Naomi chuckled awkwardly. Why not? Selina replied calmly. Poverty isn't a disease, Miss Mensa, and wealth doesn't automatically mean refinement. Frederick cleared his throat. Surely you've had to do a lot of adjusting to fit in at our firm? On the contrary, Selina smiled. I've come to see that people are more alike than they are different, regardless of their bank account. Everyone wants to be understood. Everyone needs dignity. Everyone stumbles. What a charming philosophy, Naomi murmured. Though I imagine it's easier to preach when someone else is footing the bill. Selina didn't respond right away. She sipped her wine and regarded Naomi with honest interest. Have you ever worked, Miss Mensa? Of course I've worked. Naomi sat straighter. I manage my family's assets. I organize charity galas. I mean worked, for a paycheck, Selina clarified gently. Waking up every day knowing that if you don't, there's no rent money. The silence at the table turned heavy. Selina continued, her tone soft. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying every viewpoint has value. You see life from your world. I see it from mine. Just then, a man approached their table with a camera hanging from his shoulder. Sorry to intrude. I'm Kwame Denton, from the Africa Herald. May I have a word, Miss Owusu? Heads turned toward Selina in surprise. Me? Selina looked genuinely confused. I think you may have mistaken me for someone else. Are you Selina Owusu, the coordinator of the Learning Without Borders initiative in Dakar? Selina slowly nodded. That's me. Perfect. I'm writing an article about impactful social inclusion initiatives. Your program came up in my research as one of the most successful of the past 10 years. Naomi gripped her wine glass so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Mr. Denton, she interrupted. I believe you're intruding on a private dinner. No problem. Selina stood with effortless grace. We can speak right here, if everyone else doesn't mind. Denton turned on a small recorder. Tell me about the Dakar project. How did you manage to get families from 15 different nationalities involved in a literacy program? Selina, clearly at ease for the first time that evening, seemed entirely in her element. There was a light in her eyes, steady and warm. The light of someone speaking not from ambition, but from conviction. The key was recognizing that education isn't charity. It's a right. One we're simply returning to them. Many of those families were made up of professionals, creatives, intellectuals who lost their credentials when they migrated. Can you give an example? There was a man named Amadou. He had been a literature professor in Senegal. In Dakar, he sold flowers on street corners until he realized he could teach French to other migrants using African literature he translated himself. He didn't just get back a job, he reclaimed his identity. And when he stood before a room of students teaching again in his own words, you could see the years of loss lift off his shoulders. Denton nodded, scribbling notes rapidly. And the language aspect? I read that you coordinated sessions in French, Arabic, English, Selina added, and Spanish and Wolof when needed. My grandmother always told me every new language you learn makes you a different person. I think it makes you more whole. That's impressive. Do you speak all those languages? Selina blushed faintly. I know the basics, yes. But for deeper work, I always partnered with native speakers. It was never about showing off. It was about reaching people where they were, in the words they trusted. Denton turned toward Daniel. Mr. Ofori, you must be very proud to have such a globally accomplished employee. Daniel cleared his throat. All eyes shifted to him. Yes, of course. Selena is extremely valuable to our team. What sort of projects is she currently managing? The question hit like a punch. Daniel couldn't say she spent her time filing reports and fetching coffee. We're exploring new initiatives where we can apply her international experience. He lied. Denton smiled. Wonderful. The world could use more programs like Miss Owusu's. May we get a few photos? Over the next few minutes, Selena posed for several pictures. She looked poised and at ease. She didn't perform, she simply existed with quiet self-respect. Her answers were articulate, thoughtful, and sincere. She talked about her work without sounding arrogant. When Denton left, the table fell into a stunned silence. Selena returned to her seat as if nothing unusual had happened. Well, she said, lifting her glass. Where were we? Naomi looked at her like she was from another planet. Frederick seemed to have forgotten how to speak. Daniel realized he had spent 3 years working beside a remarkable woman without ever attempting to truly understand her. And the most unsettling part was that Selena didn't even seem aware of the impact she'd made. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't defiance, it was simply her truth, worn like second skin. For her, this was all just normal. The evening was far from over, but the rules had already changed. What do you think Daniel's realization means for Selena and for the company? Drop your predictions in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories. The fallout. Monday morning, Daniel arrived at the office 30 minutes late, a splitting headache pounding behind his eyes. He hadn't slept since the banquet. The image of Selena in that red dress, speaking eloquently to the cameras, replayed in his mind on a loop. His assistant, Clara, met him at the door with a stack of messages and an odd expression. Mr. Ofori, you need to see this. She handed him her tablet. On screen was a YouTube video titled, "The Intern Who Stunned the Elite." Her story will leave you speechless. The video had already surpassed 200,000 views. How is this possible? Daniel collapsed into his chair. It went viral last night. It's everywhere now, Clara said. The full interview in the Africa Herald dropped too. Daniel hit play. The footage showed the exact moment Selena stepped into the ballroom, followed by the silent reaction. Then clips of her interview with Denton rolled, her voice filled with conviction as she discussed her social programs. She spoke like someone who had been silenced for too long, and now that she had the floor, she wasn't letting it go. The comments were relentless. What an amazing woman. We need more people like her. Look at the way those rich folks gawk. Pure envy. She's got real grace. Did you see the blonde's expression? Savage. Daniel's phone rang. It was Frederick. Daniel? Did you see the mess? We need to talk immediately. 15 minutes later, all 4 senior partners were seated in the boardroom. The air was thick. This is a disaster, Frederick paced angrily. Our firm now looks like an exclusive club that mistreats its staff. The phones haven't stopped, added Jacob Mensah, Naomi's father and a senior partner. Journalists, activists, even clients are calling to ask what's going on. And all because of your brilliant idea to invite the help. Mensah barked at Daniel. What were you thinking? Daniel clenched his fists. Selena is not a maid. She's our executive assistant. Executive assistant? Frederick scoffed with a bitter laugh. Since when does serving coffee make someone an executive? Did you know she speaks 5 languages? That she coordinated global projects before joining us? Daniel stood. Did any of you even read her resume? Once? Her resume? Mensah looked at him with disdain. Daniel, we hire people like her to handle the grunt work, not to lecture us on ethics. At that moment, the door flew open. Naomi stormed in, her eyes puffy and makeup smudged. This is a nightmare, she shouted. I'm being mocked all over social media. There are memes of my face, Daniel. Memes. She flopped dramatically into a chair. My friends won't answer my calls. My stylist says I need a whole rebrand because my image is ruined. All thanks to that woman. Naomi, calm down. Daniel reached out to touch her shoulder, but she jerked away. Don't touch me. This is on you. You invited her. You let her humiliate us. Frederick seized the moment. Daniel, we need to act. Now. The firm's image is crumbling. What do you suggest? Daniel asked. Obviously, Selena has to go. Today. Fire her. On what grounds? You'll need a reason. Mensa leaned back in his chair. Find one. Tardiness, clerical errors, whatever. But if you do it now, Naomi cut in, still dabbing her tears, it's going to look like revenge. The media will spin it into something worse. Mensa grinned slyly. Not if we do it right. An audit of her performance, some conveniently uncovered mistakes, maybe behavioral concerns. These things take time. Daniel looked around at the men he once called colleagues, even friends. But now he saw something he hadn't before. Fear. Fear that someone like Selena could expose them for who they truly were. No, he said softly. No, we're not firing Selena. Frederick straightened in his seat. Daniel, don't be naive. That woman is sinking our firm. Our reputation or our hypocrisy? The room went still. Naomi narrowed her eyes at him. Do you have feelings for her, Daniel? The question hit like a slap. Daniel felt every eye on him. This has nothing to do with personal feelings. Then prove it. Mensa leaned forward. Prove your loyalty still lies with us. Daniel looked out the window. Outside, the city carried on with its usual rhythm, but inside that office, something had shifted. He could no longer pretend not to see the cracks that had always been there. The facade of professionalism had crumbled, revealing the ugly truths he had ignored for far too long. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. Mr. Ofori, I'm a journalist from West Africa today. Could we talk about Selena Owusu and the working conditions at your firm? Daniel turned off his phone and looked at his partners. I need time to think. We're out of time, Frederick replied. Either she goes, or this gets a whole lot worse. As Daniel left the boardroom, he couldn't shake the thought. How did he get to this point? Just a week ago, his life had been stable, even comfortable. Now, he felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, and someone had lit a fuse. The safety net of silence had vanished. All that remained was a choice between complicity and courage. The question was, did he still want to put it out, or was he ready to leap? A necessary apology. 2 weeks after the disaster at the restaurant, Daniel tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but the cracks were impossible to ignore. Selena continued her work as if nothing had happened. But now, the rest of the office watched her with a blend of respect and curiosity that hadn't existed before. Whispers in the hallway had shifted from gossip to admiration, from dismissal to awe. The real test came on a Thursday evening. The partners had arranged a dinner with high-level Japanese investors at the city's most upscale restaurant. Naomi insisted on coming along, as she always did for key meetings. You need to appear steady, she told him while applying her makeup in her apartment. After everything that's happened, clients need to believe you haven't changed. But Daniel had changed. And that night, everything unraveled. It began when they arrived. The Japanese delegation was already there, joined by Frederick and Mensa. Introductions were formal and polite. Daniel thought maybe the night would go smoothly. He was wrong. Halfway through the dinner, as they discussed a potential partnership with an Asian firm, one of the Japanese executives casually brought up the video. Very impressive. Your employee, Mr. Ofori. In Japan, we deeply admire those who balance humility with achievement. Naomi set down her glass a little too hard. Well, you know how social media can be. Everything gets so overblown. The Japanese gentleman looked at her with gentle confusion. Overblown? But Miss Owusu's accomplishments are public record. Her Dakar program was even recognized by UNESCO. Mensa cleared his throat awkwardly. Mr. Yamamoto, I believe the discussion is drifting from the key business matters. On the contrary, another investor interjected. A company that recognizes talent, regardless of social origin, is exactly the kind of organization we're eager to collaborate with. Naomi let out a strained laugh. Please, they're acting like she's Mother Teresa. She's just another staffer who got lucky being filmed. The silence that followed was frigid. The Japanese investors exchanged glances. Excuse me, said Mr. Yamamoto, his tone tightly controlled, but did you just belittle your colleague's professional accomplishments? Colleague? Naomi laughed louder. She's an intern. She files documents and pours coffee. I don't see why we have to act like she's more than that. Daniel felt his face flush. Naomi, stop. Stop what? Telling the truth? She spun toward him, eyes blazing. Everyone's acting like that woman is some kind of savior just because she caused a scene online. Naomi, please no. She rose, visibly furious. I'm done pretending. Done with everyone acting like that outsider is something special. You want to know what I think? I think she's trying to take my place. The Japanese guests watched the exchange with clear discomfort. Frederick tried to step in. Naomi, maybe it's best if what? I stay quiet while she tears apart everything we built? She turned back to Daniel. Or have you forgotten who stood by you when you launched this firm? Who was there for every meeting, every milestone? Daniel stood up slowly. Naomi, we're leaving. Now. I'm not going anywhere. These men deserve the truth. They should know that Selina Owusu is an opportunist using her sob story to manipulate everyone. Yamamoto set down his napkin and stood. Mr. Ofori, I believe this meeting is over. Mr. Yamamoto, please, let me explain. There's nothing left to explain. The Japanese investor spoke coldly. In my culture, respect for workers is a core value. What we've just seen tells us everything we need to know about your firm. The delegation left quietly, leaving the partners seated in awkward, loaded silence. Naomi stayed standing, breath ragged. Perfect, she snapped. Now, because of that woman, we just lost a multi-million-dollar deal. Because of her? No, Daniel erupted. Because of you. Because of your entitled tantrum that can't handle someone else shining. Naomi stared at him as though he'd just slapped her. How dare you? How dare I? You know what, Naomi? You're right. Selina Owusu is taking something, the illusion that we're better people just because we have money. Frederick tried to defuse the moment. Daniel, we're all emotional right now. No, Daniel turned toward him. You know what I learned this week? That Naomi has been using my name to close deals without my consent. She's been promising mergers and agreements I never authorized. Mensa paled. Daniel, what are you saying? He's saying I went behind his back, Naomi said, lifting her chin in defiance. Yes, I used your name. Yes, I pushed some contracts through. So what? Someone had to make decisions while you were busy playing social justice hero. Playing? Daniel looked at her with a mix of pain and revulsion. Naomi, we've been together 3 years. I thought I knew you. Oh, you know me, Daniel. You've just never liked what you saw. Daniel stayed silent for a few seconds. Then, in a composed voice, he said, You're right. And this ends tonight. He turned and walked toward the exit, leaving Naomi shouting his name in the middle of the city's most luxurious restaurant. Outside, under the soft drizzle that had begun to fall, he didn't feel regret or doubt, only the quiet, startling clarity of a man who had finally cut himself loose from a lie. Daniel realized that, for the first time in years, he felt free. A new chapter begins. 3 days after the restaurant fallout, Daniel sat at his desk at 5 a.m., staring at his screen, writing and erasing the same paragraph for the 10th time. Beside him, a cold cup of coffee and several discarded drafts bore witness to his inner turmoil. Selina had not been in the office since Monday. Clara had informed him that she'd requested a few personal days, but Daniel suspected Frederick or Mensa had pushed her out. Rumors were flying that the partners were preparing her termination. The official story would be staff restructuring, but everyone knew better. Daniel finished typing, leaned back, and read the letter once more. It was addressed to the city's leading newspaper, and he knew, once he sent it, there was no going back. At 8 a.m., when Frederick strolled into the office with his usual self-assurance, he was greeted with a nasty surprise. His assistant handed him the morning edition with a troubled look. On the opinion page, beneath a bold headline and a photo of Daniel Ofori, was an editorial titled, A Necessary Apology and a Delayed Reflection. Frederick began to read and felt a chill spread through his chest. As a founding partner of Ofori & Associates, I feel compelled to make a public statement, both to an exceptional employee and to society as a whole. Selina Owusu has worked with us for 3 years. In that time, my partners and I failed to treat her as the capable, qualified professional she is. Instead, we viewed her as secondary, someone whose role was simply to make our lives easier. The scandal last week was not caused by Selina. It was caused by our failure to see the talent that had been right in front of us. It was caused by our class arrogance, our social blindness, our comfort within a system that benefits us, at the cost of keeping others in roles that don't reflect their true potential. Frederick rushed to Daniel's office, but it was empty. His assistant informed him that Daniel had arrived early, left some documents, and departed without saying when he'd return. Frederick's phone rang. It was Mensa. Did you see the paper? Daniel's lost his mind. I'm reading it now. This is catastrophic. He's dragging us down. Do you know how many clients have already called, asking if we really discriminate against our staff? Frederick kept reading. Selena Owusu does not need us to defend her. Her accomplishments speak for themselves. But we do need to defend ourselves, from the moral mediocrity that lets us sleep well at night while we squander talent based on class bias. Therefore, as of today, Selena Owusu will be promoted to Special Projects Coordinator with the salary and responsibilities she has long deserved. I also announce my temporary withdrawal from the firm's daily operations to reflect on the type of organization we want to lead and the kind of individuals we want to be. He's insane, Mensah shouted into the phone. Special Projects Coordinator? That role doesn't even exist. Wait, there's more, Frederick said, continuing. To Naomi Mensah, who for years was my partner and with whom I once imagined a future, I say this: love cannot survive where there is disdain for others. Your actions last week revealed a part of you I refuse to acknowledge. To my partners, I remind you, a company isn't just a profit-making machine. It's a mirror of our humanity. And to Selena, I apologize for the 3 years lost, for not seeing what was always in front of me, that you are a remarkable woman who deserves far more than this firm has offered. Frederick dropped the paper. His phone kept buzzing, Mensah still yelling on the line, but he no longer heard either. Meanwhile, in a small cafe downtown, Selena sat holding the same newspaper with trembling fingers. Her sister Amma sat across from her, studying her every expression. What do you think? Amma asked gently. Selena slowly folded the paper. I think it's easy to write beautiful words when you've got nothing left to lose. You don't believe he means it? Selena sighed. I think Daniel Ofori finally woke up. The problem is, he woke up 3 years too late. Her phone began to buzz. Unknown numbers, one after another. Journalists, talk shows, advocacy groups. Daniel's editorial had turned Selena into a symbol, whether she wanted it or not. Are you going back to the firm? Amma asked. Selena looked out the cafe window. Outside, people hurried to jobs, each carrying their unseen battles. I don't know, she replied. Honestly, I don't know if I want to be Daniel Ofori's redemption project. But deep in her heart, something had shifted. For the first time in 3 years, someone had truly seen her. The question was that enough to rebuild something new on the ashes of what had been? Her phone rang again. This time, it was a number she recognized. It was Daniel. Selena stared at the screen for a long moment, unsure whether to answer. Finding true value, she let the phone ring until it went silent. Then it rang again, and again. On the 4th attempt, Amma looked at her, exasperated. Aren't you going to pick up? I'm not ready for that conversation. Her voice was steady, but her hand trembled slightly as she set the phone down. 1,000 thoughts surged through her mind, each one pulling her in a different direction. The part of her that had grown used to disappointment urged her to turn away. But something softer, deeper, whispered that maybe this time could be different. Still, the phone buzzed throughout the morning. Texts, calls, even an email Selena deleted without reading. 3 weeks later, Selena had settled into a quiet rhythm. The offers had flooded in after Daniel's article. Some were clearly for show, but others came from real institutions that respected her actual work. She took a temporary role coordinating a digital literacy program for the elderly. The pay wasn't much, but the purpose filled her. From what she'd read in the papers, Daniel had kept his word. He had stepped away from the firm and begun working on pro bono legal education in underprivileged communities. Selena had seen his photo in a feature about legal aid efforts in working-class neighborhoods. He looked different, thinner, more grounded, as if he'd traded his expensive suits for something more honest. And when she saw that image of him, seated among elderly tenants in a cramped community hall, his sleeves rolled up and his face open and earnest, something in her chest softened. He was no longer the man from the firm. He was someone else, someone trying. They crossed paths again by chance one Saturday at the city's book fair. Selena was browsing a stall from a local publisher, flipping through a book on educational initiatives in West Africa, when a familiar voice said, "Is it any good?" Selena turned. Daniel stood beside her, dressed in jeans and a plain shirt, a tote bag full of books slung over his shoulder. Daniel. Selena. They looked at each other for what felt like forever. He looked weary, but there was a new calmness in his eyes, a peace she didn't recall ever seeing. "How are you?" he asked at last. "Good, working on things." "I'm glad to hear that." Selena closed the book and returned it to the shelf. "I read about your new projects." "Oh," Daniel asked. "What do you think?" "It's easy to be generous when there's nothing left to lose." Daniel's smile faded. "You're right, but sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what you never really had." Selena studied him. There was no trace of the pompous man she had once worked beside. This Daniel looked younger, more grounded, more human. "Do you want to get a coffee?" he asked. "There's a spot nearby I go to." "I know the place." They walked in silence along the cobblestone paths of the historic district. The book fair had drawn in families, students, and readers from all over. Selena noticed how Daniel casually greeted street vendors, how he paused to drop coins into a street musician's open case. "How long have you been coming around here?" Selena asked. "A few weeks since starting the legal aid initiative. A lot of the participants live nearby." "Our participants?" Daniel flushed slightly. "I mean, the program's participants. You know what I meant." Selena smiled for the first time since they'd met that day. "Yeah, I do." The cafe was small, crowded, alive with students and creatives, a far cry from the upscale lounges Selena used to see Daniel frequent. They found a table by the window. Daniel ordered an Americano. Selena, chamomile tea. "How are things at the firm?" she asked. "Tense. Frederick and Mensa are furious. We lost several major clients after the article." "Do you regret it?" Daniel took his time responding. "The hit to the firm?" "Yes, there were good people there, people uninvolved in any of it, who paid the price. But writing the letter?" He shook his head. "No." "And Naomi?" "She moved to Miami. Her family owns businesses there. I think she needed to get away after everything." Selena nodded. She didn't feel vindicated by Naomi's downfall. Only a soft sorrow for how avoidable it had all been. "Selena," Daniel leaned forward. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, after everything." "You're right," she interrupted. "You don't." He leaned back slowly, accepting the truth. "But," Selena added, her voice gentle, "you can try. Try to be the person you say you want to be, without expecting me or anyone else to forgive who you used to be." Daniel looked at her, and in his eyes was something that resembled gratitude. "You know what the hardest part of all this is?" he said. "Realizing that for 3 years I had one of the most remarkable people I've ever met sitting right in front of me, and I never truly saw her." Selena took a slow sip of her tea. "Maybe you weren't ready to see me. Maybe I wasn't ready to be seen either." Selena looked Daniel in the eyes. Her voice was steady, but inside, her heart beat with the weight of unspoken truths. What she saw there was real, honesty, but also uncertainty. Daniel Ofori was no longer the man who once thought he had all the answers. "Now, I think we're both learning to be different," she said softly, her words carrying the quiet strength of someone who had weathered too many storms. "And that's enough. For today." They sat quietly, sipping their drinks as the fair outside carried on in its cheerful hum. It was a silence not of avoidance, but of understanding, deep and mutual. For the first time in years, Selena felt at peace, with the loose ends, the questions, the future. Sometimes she realized new beginnings didn't come with a grand gesture. Sometimes they arrived on a quiet afternoon, shared with someone who had finally learned how to truly see you. Building a shared future. 2 months after that encounter at the fair, Selena got an unexpected call. It was Daniel. But his voice, calmer, humbler, sounded different. "Selena, I know this might sound strange, but would you be willing to help me with something?" She was in the middle of preparing handouts for her digital literacy class. "Help you with what?" "The legal aid project. It's not working like I thought it would. People don't trust us, and I think I finally understand why." Selena stopped what she was doing. "I'm listening." "We're still acting like we're swooping in from above, saviors from ivory towers. Would you meet with me? Just to talk. Help me figure out what I'm doing wrong." Selena glanced out the window of her small, borrowed office. Outside, a few of her elderly students were laughing as they practiced sending text messages on their phones. "Where?" "The same cafe as last time. Tomorrow at 3? "I'll be there." The next day, Selena arrived a few minutes early. Daniel was already there, but he wasn't alone. With him were 3 people: an older woman, a young man in a work uniform, and a teenage girl who couldn't have been more than 16. Selina, Daniel stood as she approached. I want you to meet Madame Abena, Kojo, and Afua. They came to tell me why our program isn't working. Selina took a seat, curious. Madame Abena spoke first. Miss Owusu, my grandson told me about you. He said you teach computers without making us feel stupid. You're not stupid, Selina replied gently. You're just learning something new. Exactly, Kojo jumped in. But when I went to Mr. Ofori's office about a workplace issue, they gave me like 10 forms to fill out and used words I didn't understand. Afua nodded. And they scheduled an appointment for 10 in the morning, when my mom's at work. Like poor people can just leave their jobs anytime. Daniel looked truly embarrassed. That's why I asked them to speak to you, Selina. You understand these things better than I do. Selina looked at the three visitors, then at Daniel. Can I ask you something? What would it take for the legal aid program to truly help you? Madame Abena lit up. If it happened in the evenings or on weekends, and in places we already go, like the clinic or the school in our neighborhood. And if they explain things in plain language, Kojo added. Not like we're ignorant, but also not like we're lawyers. And if they understood that legal problems are sometimes just one part of the whole issue, Afua said. My mom needs a divorce, but she also needs a job and daycare for my little brothers. Selina nodded, committing every word to memory. What if there was someone who knew both the legal side and the human side? Someone who could connect people to different services? Madame Abena's face lit up. That would be perfect. Like a, what do you call it? A coordinator, Selina smiled. Yes, a coordinator. She turned to Daniel, who had been quietly listening the whole time. What do you think? I think I need a coordinator, he said without hesitation. Someone who understands both the legal and the human side. Selina felt a flicker deep in her chest. She had received many job offers, but none like this. Are you offering me a job? I'm asking you to show me how to do this the right way. The job is yours, if you want it. But more than that, I'm asking you to be my partner. Partner? The program needs leadership, someone who understands the people we're trying to serve. I can handle the legal side, but I want you to direct it. Selina looked at Madame Abena, Kojo, and Afua. In their eyes, she didn't see polite approval or obligation. She saw something real, hope. Can I think about it? Of course. After the others had gone, Selina and Daniel stayed in the cafe, the hum of quiet conversations filling the space. Why me? She asked. There are people with more experience in legal aid. Daniel met her gaze. Because in 3 years of working with you, I never saw you treat anyone like they were beneath you. Not even me, when I acted like a fool. Selina felt something stir, something both new and familiar. Daniel, she began. I know I don't have the right to ask you to trust me again. Not after everything. But I believe that together, we could build something real. Something that matters. She looked down at her hands. You know what's the hardest part of all this? What? That, for the first time in my life, someone sees me exactly as I am. Not as who they need me to be. Not as someone to fix. Not as someone to make themselves feel better. Just me. Daniel reached his hand across the table, not to grab hers, just to offer it, steady and open. When someone finally sees you for who you truly are, he said, you don't have to prove anything anymore. Selina looked at his hand, and after a moment placed hers gently on top. Okay, she said softly, let's try. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It wasn't a dramatic declaration of love. It wasn't fireworks or sweeping music. It was something far more real, and for that reason, infinitely more valuable. It was hope, quiet and honest. It was an honest beginning, a legacy of respect. A year later, Selina arrived at the office early, as she always did. It was no longer the modest, borrowed space where the initiative had started. Now, it had a home, on the ground floor of a bright, airy building in the city's historic center. Photos lined the walls, snapshots of digital literacy graduations, families reunited after resolving legal issues, children beaming with new scholarships. The center had grown beyond anyone's expectations. It was no longer just a legal aid program. It had become a full community hub, offering everything from computer classes to entrepreneurship workshops. Each photo told a story, a victory won against a system that had long ignored people like them. Selina had insisted everything remain free, and the schedule flexible, tailored to people's real lives. Daniel arrived half an hour later, carrying 2 coffees and a bag of sweet bread from Auntie Mansa's corner stall, the woman who had sorted her pension through the program. "Morning, Director," he said, setting a cup on Selina's desk with a smile. "Morning, people's lawyer," she replied without glancing up from her files. It was their ritual. Daniel brought coffee. Selina set the day's priorities. Their partnership worked, because neither tried to be anything they weren't. "How are this week's cases?" Daniel asked, sitting across from her. Madame Abena's pension finally came through. Kojo got paid the overtime his employer owed him, and Ifua. Selina smiled. "Ifua decided to study law. We secured her a full scholarship at the public university. She wants to be like us when she grows up," Daniel said, laughing. "Like us." Selina raised an eyebrow over the documents. "Remember when you thought you were my boss?" They both chuckled, a sound filled with shared history and gentle teasing. The door opened. Alma stepped in. She now worked part-time with the center while finishing her degree in social work. "Selina, the journalist from EduNation is here. Should I bring him in?" Since the center had gained national attention, media requests had become frequent. Most were declined, but this one, from a respected educational publication, was different. "Let him in." The journalist, young and energetic, entered with notepad in hand. For the next hour, he asked questions about methods, about funding, about the center's future. But in the end, as always, he turned to the personal. "You two have an interesting story," the journalist said. "From conflict in a law firm to partners in a community program. How would you describe your relationship now?" Selina and Daniel exchanged a glance. It was the question they always got and never quite knew how to answer. "We're colleagues," Selina said finally. "Friends," Daniel added. "People who learned how to work together," she continued. "And personally," the journalist pressed, "there are rumors that—" "We're 2 people who decided," Daniel interrupted firmly, "that the work we do is more important than the rumors others create around us." After the journalist left, they quietly began sorting through the papers on Selina's desk. "Does it bother you?" Daniel asked. "That they always ask about this?" Selina shrugged. "It used to, but I'm used to it now. People need to romanticize things to make sense of them." "What if it were true?" Daniel asked quietly. "What if there was something more between us?" Selina paused mid-note and looked at him. "Is there?" Daniel took a moment. "There's respect, admiration, affection." He paused. "Is that enough to call it love?" "I don't know," Selina replied honestly. "But I know it's real, and I know it's ours, whatever anyone else calls it." Daniel nodded. "I like our life just the way it is." "Me too." And it was true. They saw each other nearly every day, shared meals, laughed at private jokes, supported each other during hard times. Daniel was there when Selina had the flu. Selina was there when Daniel learned his father had passed away. They didn't live together. They had no wedding plans, no romantic selfies on social media, but they had something many official couples never achieved. They truly saw one another. They respected one another, and together they had built something that mattered. The world around them remained competitive, elitist, unequal, but in their small corner they had created something different. They weren't trying to fix the whole world, just living more honestly within it. And at the end of the day, when they closed up the office and walked together toward the metro station, Selina knew she had found something she'd never searched for, but had always needed. Someone who saw her exactly as she was. And for her, that was enough. Did you enjoy Selina and Daniel's journey? This story reminds us that sometimes the most beautiful endings aren't grand. They're simply real. Selina didn't need someone to rescue her. She rescued herself with grace and strength. And Daniel learned that true power doesn't come from wealth or status, but from knowing how to truly value those around you. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and share it with someone who needs a reminder. Their worth isn't defined by others' opinions. Selina and Daniel's transformation proves it's never too late to change, to open your eyes, to build something new from what once felt broken. Want more stories with real, relatable characters? Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new chapters. Now tell us, where are you watching from? We love knowing these stories are connecting hearts across the world. Drop your country in the comments.